Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our grammar lessons at Almano International School for our grade fours. So today we will be discussing quotations and quotation marks. And this lesson can be found in our Readers and Writers Notebook on page 421. So the first question we need to ask ourselves is, what is a quotation? A quotation is basically a speaker's exact words. That is a quotation. A quotation is a speaker, it is someone's exact words. And when we write quotations, when we write the exact words of a speaker or of someone else, we will use quotation marks to indicate that it's not our words, but it is someone else's words, or it is the speaker's words. And when we write a quotation, when we write someone else's words, we start the quotation with a capital letter. And also, we always start a quotation with a capital letter. Let's look at an example quickly. Okay, so if we look at the sentence over here, Miss Talbot said, comma, please get a pencil. So Mrs. Talbot said, comma, we have quotation marks at the beginning and a quotation marks at the end. So the quotation marks shows us that this piece, these four words, is a quotation. Why? Because these four words are between two quotation marks. Okay, so Mrs. Talbot said, comma, please get a pencil. And this is the quotation for us. Why? Because these words are Mrs. Talbot's words. And the writer who wrote the sentence wanted to let everyone know that it is not his words. He's not saying, please get a pencil, but Mrs. Talbot is getting a pencil. That is what she said, not what the writer said. So whenever we write and whenever we read, and we see quotation marks, we need to understand it is not the author's words when we are writing, when we are reading a book or a story, but he's indicating that he's using someone else's words in his story. Similarly, when we are writing and we use a quotation, what are we doing? We're using someone else's words to explain something. So let's make an example, okay? So if we're writing and we're writing about the cure for the coronavirus, then I will write something like this by means of example. I feel that the cure for the coronavirus today is the use of honey and black seeds. Because Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, a honey, quotation, honey is a cure for everything. Okay, so what did I do? I said in the first part of my sentence that I feel that honey is a cure for coronavirus. Why? Because then I quoted Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I opened my quotation marks and I put in here and I put it in the words, honey is a cure for everything. So that is what a quotation is. A quotation is basically when you use someone else's words to basically prove a point or drive away a point. And always we need to remember to put a capital letter at the beginning of the quotation, between the quotation marks. In this particular slide here, it's very simply, some rules are very simply illustrated. If the quotation, the words in the quotation marks are at the beginning of a sentence, we need to place the comma after it. Okay, and if the quotation is at the end of a sentence, we will put the comma first at the beginning of a sentence, then we will have the quotation. And also when there are quotations at the beginning of a sentence and at the end of the sentence, we need to place one comma after the quotation at the beginning of the sentence, and we need to put a comma before the quotation at the end of the sentence to show the readers that it's not the author's words, but it is someone else's words, basically. So just to recap, when the quotation is at the beginning of a sentence, we need to place the comma after it. And when the quotation is at the end of a sentence, we need to place the comma at the beginning before we start the quotation. Why? Because to show the reader that it's not the author's words. And similarly, we need to place the quotation after the beginning and before the end of both quotations when there are two quotations in the sentence. Okay. So these are basically some rules, some very, very important rules when we use the quotation marks. And last but not least, we need to remember when we write quotations, the first word always has to have a capital letter. So this is basically what we discussed today. Okay. And lastly, when we use punctuation marks in our quotation, like we have a comma or we have a question mark or we have an exclamation mark, it should always be before we close our quotation with the quotation marks at the end. Okay, so we have quotation marks at the beginning. Remember, we need to put a capital letter at the beginning of the quotation, and at the end of the words we place the punctuation mark. Then we basically close the quotation. Okay, with the quotation marks at the end. That is very, very important to remember as well. Okay, so thank you so much for your time, guys. It was a lovely, lovely lesson. We basically discussed what a quotation is. A quotation is basically the exact words of a speaker, and we use quotation marks in sentences when we write to show that it is the speaker's words, not the author's words or the writer's words. And also at the beginning of a quotation, we need to have a capital letter, as the slide illustrates, and also we have to place commas when at different places when the quotation is at the beginning or at the end or on both sides. And the punctuation mark needs to be before we close the quotation, basically. So thank you so much for your time. Have a lovely, lovely day. Bye-bye.